So this is great. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you also for all the people, not everybody, but all the people who made a donation when you were clicking through all the tickets. I'm very kind of you. Really appreciate it. I feel a little bit bad that I put that on there, but on the other hand, it's us. So thank you so much. Louder still? Yeah. God, it's really loud up here. Okay. I'll tell you what, I'll step forward so it doesn't sound so loud for me. Right, is that all right? Okay. Do I have to start again? Please. Okay, so I assume everybody knows what we did, but I'll give a little quick, brief explanation of what we did. Hey, are you? Hi. I'm going to go able to get through there. Great. So, as I'm sure you know, we organised a trip to Israel. For many of us, it was our first trip, our first visit to Israel. Of the 16 or so people, I think we had 3 Jews on the trip. The rest of us were non-Jews, some atheists, some Christians, and like I say, our first time going to Israel. So the idea was, in terms of the things we did, the idea was that we went there for Yom HaShoah, for the Holocaust Memorial Day, and then we stayed all the way through to Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaZmut. That's Mouth. Those were the Jews that were on the trip. And so we stayed for the full cycle for Holocaust Memorial Day, which, as you may or may not know, in Israel is based, or the date that's chosen there is not the same as that we have for International Holocaust Memorial Day. It's based on the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising date. So already it contains this idea of the depravity and the depths of the Holocaust, and the idea of fighting back, and the idea of resistance and resilience. And obviously that was a main theme of the whole time that we were there in Israel. We then stayed through to the Memorial Day, for the commemoration day for the fallen, for the soldiers, for the people who have fought to defend Israel, and the people who fought to establish Israel. And then that flows into Independence Day and the celebrations and the parties and all of that. So again, constantly this idea of commemoration, this idea of remembrance, this idea of appreciation for the things that people have done in the past, the sacrifices people have made, but at the same time the celebrations and the forward-looking nature. So these were the things that the trip was organised around those dates specifically. But of course, everybody came away with different experiences, came away with different, they had different reasons for going, which maybe we'll hear people mention, and then came away with different experiences from what they found inspiring or profound, or insights that they hadn't expected. So, what we thought we would do, because getting a little bit fed up at people coming up to us in the pub and saying, "How was your trip to Israel?" We thought we could just do the whole thing in one go. People could share their experiences here. You can ask questions, or you can heckle, or you can do whatever you like. You can ask, what was the, I don't know, most profound thing, or whatever, whatever you like. We've got some photos cycling through. That's a small fraction of the photos, videos that we've got. There's some amazing stuff that we'll be sharing. But for now, let's hear from some of the reports. Any questions so far? We all clear on the format? Yeah.
And then,
so who would like to go? Well, Wendy, you wrote a really good. You wrote quite a few people have written reports so far. Not all of them are online yet, but there are about 5 or 6. Wendy wrote a report, and she also wrote a kind of overview of the trip. So maybe you could kind of kick us off. Is that right? You're looking like you weren't expecting this, but we've got. you do know why we're here.
didn't you talk about this? Because you can't really see the picture. It's
Yes,
not
that's
really worth
right.
it.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, when
No.
it gets dark, maybe, but right now,
Yeah,
it's
no,
pointless.
it was only until we got set up.
I think we all went on the trip for different reasons. We were all involved in the trip for different reasons. Personally, I didn't really know what to expect, but I like travelling. I'm curious about the world, and I felt that I felt that the struggle for Israel, the right of Israel to exist, had become so important that to go there and know about it more was important to me. So it was like a combination of things. I've never been to Israel before. I've been thinking about doing it for a few years. I've got around to it. I think there were a number of things that I suppose kind of we all felt at some level, but probably at varying levels depending on our experience before. But I think the thing that we all felt about Israel was what a strong sense of itself Israel has. Because we're living in a country where almost that sense of what it is to be a country, or to be a nation, or to be a people, has kind of diminished so much, has fractured so much, that it's almost like it hits you when you first arrive, that sense of being an entity in itself, which is a little bit strange in a way, but even arriving at the airport and immediately seeing all these posters of bring them home. I mean, where else would you see that? I mean, it's not just that the country is under attack, but actually the response to the attack is not to sort of not to feel victimised by it, though that's obviously an element of it, but actually sort of like saying, no, we're not going to put up with this, and that sort of comes across in all the, right from the beginning. And then throughout this room, I think we were all very struck by how, even though I think we all accept we've got a one-sided view of Israel, we were there not as an official tour in any way or at all, but more like, we went there for a reason of already being on Israel's side, and the people that we met were people who strengthened that sense that we should be on Israel's side. But through that experience, we did meet a lot of people who told us more about the traditions of Israel, what Israel has a sense of itself as a country. It's the Jewish tradition, which I was really completely ignorant about, and all the different elements about what it means to be an Israeli and Jewish, and what it means to be actually defending yourself against a major onslaught, and all of these. And then you had this strange juxtaposition where people might talk more about, which is sort of like that sense, you're in a country that is at war. War is there at the whole time, but you don't feel unsafe. You feel actually quite safe. And you feel like you're dealing with that sort of, that's kind of strange contrast. And actually one of the young women we talked to we were invited to a Shabbat dinner, and there were a couple of the daughters of the house kind of were there, and they talked a little bit about that sense of feeling almost like guilty, that they weren't actually out in the front, that sense that they weren't facing the real danger, but at the same time wanting to play their part in defending the country. So, and that sense of feeling wanting to play their part, in the country's existence was, seemed to occur throughout the generations, which is another thing. That generational divide, which I'm sure does exist in Israel actually, but what we came across was more a sense of generational unity, or generational sense of unity of purpose. So I think, I could obviously rabbit on for ages because there's so much to say, but it wouldn't be fair. So here you go.
Okay. Thank you. Well, maybe what we could do then is just do some short comments from people like that, and then see if there's any questions or anything, and then we can, you can just keep coming back and coming round. Shall I come to you, Jan?
Good. I was going to say, why don't you just ask when people will.
Come on.
Sorry.
He was one of the cats.
Oh, herding cats, yes. Well, I can't. I'm not sure I can say anything more than I put in my write-up. But I didn't know what to expect, and yes, it was just. sort of something else. Just so I could finish, I could only say what I said before, which was that I came away feeling that this is what a country can do when it believes in itself, what people in a country can do when they believe in themselves. And it's such a contrast to the society we're living in at the moment.
Can I ask a question? Is this the first time that you have been to Israel?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
Can't wait to go back.
Okay.
So I get emotional about everything then, don't I? just let me. So I've been to Israel since I was 7 years old. I'm Jewish. Been there, was brought up by a family of Zionists. Always believed in Israel. Lived there on and off. Love it with all my heart. And when this trip came up, I'd already booked to go in September, by the way. I'm going back in September. But then the trip came up, and the first thing Mark, I think, said to me was, we were going to Yad Vashem for Yom HaShoah. Well, that sold me, didn't it? I went, I'm coming. And it wasn't just, that was the first, I was there for a week before in Tel Aviv. And then I went and met the group in Jerusalem, and we spent the evening of the ceremony at Yom HaShoah, which was absolutely incredible. A speech by Netanyahu, some love him, some hate him. I won't give my opinion, I love him. And then we had a fantastic tour of Yad Vashem. And all the things we did, we went down south, we went to the kibbutzim, we went to the Nova Festival, we met survivors, and it was just incredible. And what was really humbling was that all these people, when I'm Jewish, Vicky's Jewish, and Susie was Jewish, yeah, but the rest, they had never been to Israel before. Only Kirk had been to Israel, right? No, none of them had been to Israel before, and it was just so humbling the way that the Israelis thanked us all the time, didn't they, for coming and supporting them. And it was just so incredible. And we were there for 9 days altogether, and after 9 days, spending it with me and Vicky, they all came back Zionists. We had a wonderful, wonderful time, a really, really wonderful time. And if you get the chance to go, if Mark does another trip, I strongly advise it. Even if you've been to Israel so many times, we did things that we would never ever get to do. The JNS conference was incredible with the speakers. I don't know if any of you have seen any of it online, the JNS conference. Just have a look at some of the speakers. It was just incredible, wasn't it, guys? We all said, we're not spending 2 days indoors at a conference at the Waldorf Astoria. Well, we couldn't leave the Waldorf Astoria. First of all, the food. The food, breakfast, lunch and dinner. And then just the whole trip was just incredible. And I've made some lovely new family. So I'll let someone else speak now.
Okay, my name is Elisabetta. It was the first time for me as well, and I am Italian. And I knew, you can tell, and I knew nothing about Israel. And well, the beauty of the country is, undeniable. Is well, we were Jerusalem and then Tel Aviv. Jaffa and the kibbutz in the envelope, and we didn't go to the north, but nevertheless what we saw, it was really absolutely beautiful. From an architectural point of view, so the old Jerusalem, with the 3 religions that come together, and what the buildings reflect, and how the building reflects that religion is, unique. To see, for example, I grew up as a Catholic, so for me to see La Via della Crocifissione, it was really something that, moved me a lot. And then from there, going to the wall, and I didn't know what to write, but nevertheless, I was there, and it's really moving, because it's moving to see how religious, people are. in Jerusalem, and for me it was yeah, a very, very strange, familiar, and wonderful, you know, thing. Even if I don't, you know, I'm atheist, and you know, I'm not religious, but nevertheless, the rituals is beautiful to see. And then in Tel Aviv, instead you have, you know, all this architecture of the 40s, and that is absolutely stunning. And it's very green, and I know it was a wonderful month, but it was, you know, the contrast with the beach, the Mediterranean Sea, and this whiteness of the houses, and then the skyscrapers. The first time that I went there, I was with Mark and Kurpa, and we came out from the station in Tel Aviv, and to see all these skyscrapers. There is an energy in Israel that is palpable. For me, it was palpable. And the fact that you know, Israel has got such a strong sense of its history and culture, you know, it makes really something absolutely different from what we see here in you know, in Europe, in the West. This sense of really knowing where you're coming from, and honoring what you know, they went through, and honoring each person. And that was, you know, as Wendy said, as soon as we came out from the airport to see the photographs of all the hostages, all the soldiers, the police, the civilians, and their name. You know, the photographs and the names are everywhere of the present, but also on the past. So you have really, I have so many problems with the Hebrew language, so you know, it's very difficult for me. But Yad Vashem. Yad Vashem. Okay, Yad Vashem. You know, that is memorized and a name. So this amazing, wonderful effort to remember, you know, each single person that so far they found in the Holocaust, and, you know, give to a 6 million, really give a sense, the sense of a person, of a community, of a family, of relationship, and how this person could have contributed to society. This was really present in the Holocaust Museum. And well, another thing that I wanted to say is that we are very, very right in thinking what we're thinking of Israel. Because we talked, you know, there are dissidents in Israel, and in Jerusalem, me, Wendy and Bridge went to talk to some family, and they were camped outside the official residency, the administrative residency of Netanyahu, and they were there camping and say how Netanyahu is just there because he wants to maintain his position. And you think, God, it's so naive to think that, you know, this is a position to aspire to, but they have nothing to add. And it was very, very poor and satisfying for me that, you know, their opposition to what is going on, at least from the people of the street that were opposing, were very, very thin and poor. And this, you know, give me some pleasure.
Finish this side. So Michael and Margarita hold the record for the most number of photographs and videos taken. I mean, it's amazing. A lot of the things here are really fantastic. So Michael, any thoughts?
Well, as Mark said, I did take about 6.5 hours of video on the trip, which I hope people will be able to see. And really, they articulate, particularly, certainly everyone, but some in particular, articulate strongly, far better than I can, about Israel and what it means to be an Israeli. I'm hoping we'll see a couple of short clips of those tonight, possibly. One was, they were both IDF soldiers. One was on active service. She was a very impressive young woman. We met her at Mount Herzl. They were paying respect to their fallen comrades. She was full of life. She talked about service, how proud she was to serve the IDF, how difficult it was, how they're not even safe in Israel. But also she talked about, once she's finished her service in a year's time, as she said, I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to fly to East Asia and South America and enjoy herself. And the other one was on the memorial night for the lone soldiers. He was an American Israeli, and he talked about so movingly about his fallen comrades, and really about how they weren't victims, how he talked about, it's a very emotional speech, and even just recalling it makes me choke up a bit, about how we shouldn't pity them. They're heroes, and he talked about the 2,000-year history of Jews being killed, and here were heroes armed to the teeth, going into battle, and dying on their feet instead of living on their knees and dying on their knees. I hope if not tonight, that you can see that video. For me, I'm not Jewish. I've been to events at synagogues here in the UK, but I've never actually been to a service. And I went to the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall, and we went with some of the people here, and also Shana, and she said there was a service at the Jerusalem Great Synagogue, and it has the best choir in Jerusalem. And did I want to go? And so I said I did, and we went there. This is the first service. We went and we met up outside, and then we went into the synagogue. The service was already taking place. The choir was singing beautifully, led by the conductor. The choir sang throughout the whole service, and there was a tremendous community feeling there. It wasn't like, a sort of formal, dull Church of England service. It was full of life. The men sat on the ground floor. The women went upstairs, but the men often had their children with them, boys and girls. And as I say, people just came in and went, and it wasn't a problem. And the men were greeting each other, and as I say, there was this tremendous feeling of community, and they were all different types of Jews, denominations of Jews, Orthodox and more liberal. As I say, it's the first Jewish service I've been to, so I don't know how representative that is. I'm told that it's maybe different for Anglo-Jews, that there things are more informal, but that there in Israel, they're sort of swimming in a sea of Judaism in a way that's different from a country like Britain, where Jews maybe stick to their own denomination. Yeah, so those were some of the impressive things. There was, I remember how friendly the people in Israel were. It was easy to talk to them. We went to Mike's bar in Tel Aviv. Our hotel was 2 minutes away. Somehow I managed to get lost and turn it into a 4-hour odyssey. But at least, you know, every time I stopped someone to ask, they all spoke English and they were always helpful. I mean, part of the reason was I thought I'd use the hotel card to say where it was, but it turned out the address on the back of the hotel card was the hotel, the headquarters of yes.
Was on the bus? He was on
Yes,
the train.
I mean, there's also lots of other, I know the focus of our trip was very much on supporting Israel, particularly in the war in Gaza, and remembering the Holocaust. But there are lots of other things in Israel to see. I visited the Israel Museum, which is rather like the British Museum. It's not just about Israel, it's about the history of all the countries in the Middle East, the archaeology. It has artworks from around the world. In fact, you can see Van Gogh and all these other things. Of course, it's also got the Dead Sea Scrolls, a large model of ancient Jerusalem. So there are lots of other things in Israel. It's not just about war and Holocaust, you know.
Can't be that helpful if it's still to be 4 hours.
But they're helpful in getting me to the headquarters.
Okay, we ready for you now, Vicky?
Yeah.
Yes. Take it away.
Hi. Well, I was last in Israel many years ago, and it actually took me a long Jew to get me back here again. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, a country of contrast. I think one couldn't help but be aware of the absolute joy and zest for life that the people have while dealing with and coping with the ongoing grief and trauma and pain and the isolation that they feel. The fact that we were constantly thanked as if we had done this wonderful thing for just being in the country was quite shocking to me, because actually from our point of view we should be the ones on our bended knees thanking the country of Israel and what they sacrifice, not just for the country, not just for the Jews, but the way I see it, I think other people are aware too, for the fighting for actual Western civilization. So for them to thank us just was ridiculous and humbling, and yeah, they're the ones sacrificing their sons, their daughters, their children. But for example, I went to Hostage Square 4 times. It's a place where you can be quiet, you can reflect. There's just a feeling of love and support and togetherness for the families who are still missing their children, or members of their family, whether they are alive or whether they are not alive. They do not, they are missing members of their family, and it's really painful. So there's such a sense of enveloping them in support and love. I don't know, someone told me, I can't remember who it was, but that there used to be a lot more kind of, cause they have like their own little area where they sit, and sometimes they put food out. It's almost like a shiva house, really, where people come and they sit and they talk, and then they get up and someone else will come along. But apparently there used to be a lot more there, but obviously as hostages have been released, it would be, well, they kind of remove themselves, the families will remove themselves, because it's very painful for the families whose members haven't been released. But one particular evening when we were there, it was Yom HaMatzot actually, and literally like a couple of metres on the other side of Hostage Square, there was a bar, a very nice bar, where there were a lot of young people celebrating Yom HaMatzot. I think I said that properly. Check your mark, but one checking and it just really summed up the contrast that here you've got all the celebrations for the love of the country and dancing and singing, and here you've got the grief and the pain, the ongoing pain in the morning. And I think that kind of sums up the country. Also, something else that I was very interested to witness is, for example, our hotel, they're suddenly descended upon us. I don't know, there must have been about 150 Ethiopian Christians there to celebrate Lent. And I mean, I've never really sort of spoken to groups of Ethiopians, and I kind of was wondering, oh, you know, why are they here? So I was talking to them, and they said they come every year to celebrate Lent, and I made some reference to, you know, how all the horrible, vile things that are said about Israel, you know, patently untrue, or what did they think of that, was that effect? And one woman just went like this, it made me laugh really, she went, it's a load of rubbish, you know, and it was just wonderful to, you know, the way she said it. You know, with such anger and passion, this Ethiopian, you know, Christian woman, it's a load of rubbish. To which I obviously agreed with her. And then even talking to some of the Israeli Arabs, you know, whether they were cab drivers or, you know, in the course of just going about your day, and asking them, you know, talking to them, and they're telling you how much they love the country, they're telling you that their life is here, they're telling you that their friends are Israeli, and, you know, they're neighbours, and they just want to be left together to get on and just live their lives. There was one guy, he was a food delivery driver, and he said that he had a business, this was, I think it was in Tel Aviv, that he had a shop just up the road, but he said because of the conflict and war and everything that's going on, that tourism has clearly dropped, and that he can't afford to feed his family. You know, he's really, really, really angry. So he then had to take on this job, this extra job in the evening, just to make a few extra shekels to feed his family. And, you know, they're fed up with it. Yeah, so that was interesting, just to get a feel of the truth, and to see and to talk to the people that were there. But it was a fantastic trip, and I think, as Leslie said, there were a lot of places that we wouldn't have been able to go to, be it the two-day conference, and other events, the Gaza envelope. I'm being invited to Yad Vashem for Yom HaShoah. It was just an incredible experience, and actually I have rebooked, having not, first time in 20 years, I've actually rebooked because I want to be there for Sukkot and Simchas Torah. So I booked my flights.
I'll stand up.
It's easier for me. Right, what to say? All I knew about Jerusalem when I was growing up was that, or Israel, that it was the Holy Land. I grew up in Ireland as a Catholic. And to be honest, once I left Catholicism behind, I didn't think very much about Israel or where it was or anything in relation to it until it became a political subject. Then obviously became more interested in it. The opportunity to go on that trip was one I jumped at because obviously it's a country I hadn't been to, it's a country I was developing an interest in, and thought this is an ideal opportunity to kind of have insight into the politics of the war, and being horrified by what I had seen on the streets of London and in the cities around the UK. The hatred for Jews and Jewish people was just unfathomable to me. Why could people be so hated? Anyway, so people have described what it was like arriving in Israel, and it was just mind-blowing to walk out of that airport and to walk around the cities and to everywhere you go. You're reminded constantly that there are people who have fought and died in the war, but people are not obsessed with the dead. They are very much about celebrating life and making sure that life for Israeli people continues, that the country survives. I wrote my piece really about how impressed I was by the people from the army whom we met. And a lot of these people were young, very young, kind of recently out of school, in training, and were constantly, obviously, reminded of the fact that they were actively at war and that they would be involved in frontline warfare before very long, and would surely be thinking that they might be part of the fallen before too long also, because inevitably, as we're seeing on a day-to-day basis, soldiers die in the war, are dying on a regular basis, and many of these are very young men and women. In Ireland, when I was growing up a very long time ago, there were volunteers who worked with the army, and in Irish they were called Forza Cosintara Junta, and that was abbreviated to FCA, and that was also widely called Fools Carrying Arms. Now, the last thing Israeli people think about the soldiers is that they are fools. They are respected, they are supported, there's a lot of pride taken in the work that they do, and families obviously expect that their children will grow up and become soldiers for anything from 2 to 3 years, I believe. This is something that they are socialized into knowing and believing that it's something that they do because the country needs defending, and it's their role to defend it. And I was so impressed by how much of that support came across, and how imbued people were with the belief that Israel was worth defending, and it was something that they would do with pride, even if it cost them their lives.
Nothing else, quite honestly, except Israel. We Jews have nothing else. This is our city. This is our country. So we have to defend it.
Yes,
We have nothing left, no other country to go to.
right, but it is so impressive to hear and to see how committed people are to that endeavour.
Yeah.
Because it's just not something we encounter on a day-to-day basis in the West anymore. The other thing that really impressed me, somebody mentioned already, was the Shabbat dinner that we were invited to. It's a thing in Jerusalem anyway, I don't know if it's more broad, if it's a more widespread practice, when families open their homes to people who are unsupported, without families, or in Jerusalem, who would like to have dinner on Shabbat. And how many were we? 14 something? Anyway, 14 of us were invited to this family's home for dinner. So there must have been about 20 of us sitting at this table. And it was the most wonderful experience. You had the man and his wife and his daughter and her friend and all of us. And he introduced us to the whole concept. He read from the Torah. He explained what the whole ceremony would be about. He went through the breaking of bread, and we passed around the wine, and had a fantastic meal with them. And then he led a conversation, or we had a conversation with him, where he described, essentially the seriousness of the threat that Israel faced. And he described Israel as a canary in the mine, essentially, that Israel was a test case, and if Israel failed, well, we were also going to fail, because it stood for civilization against barbarism. And that came across so powerfully, that he and Israelis completely understand what they're up against and how serious that threat is, but will do everything and anything to ensure that they win, which I hope they do.
This is not West
Once you're up, it's easy.
And I'm a very quiet, timid person. Hi, that was the second time I went to Israel. The first time being in '95. I'm Greek Orthodox, but my dad used to call me his Jewish child since I saw Fiddler on the Roof. So much so that LL actually gave me a gift of the tickets to go to Israel in '95, and I've been a Zionist ever since. I've always said Israel, for me, was the most beautiful country I've ever visited, and I still stand by that. Nothing has changed. But I went more to Israel to see it through political eyes, maybe because of all the rallies I go to. And what surprised me the most, besides the fact that Bibi Netanyahu was following us around, no, he was in 3 of our events. He attended and gave a speech, so we thanked him. But what got me more interested was the diversity in the political opinions that the people had, from the very, very far left to the very, very far right and everything in between. And what else impressed me is how young the IDF is. I mean, they are children, they are babies, and speaking to them, they have the maturity of having to go to war, not only for the Jewish people, because like Becky said, people thank us, especially the Christians, for supporting Israel, but the IDF and the Jewish people are not just supporting Israel. You're not doing it just for your country. You're doing it for me as well, because you are the only thing that stands between me and the terrorists. So the thank you and the gratitude goes to all of the Jewish people and the IDF. So it shocks me, like it shocked Vicky, that we get thanked for standing with Israel. And another thing that got to me very much was the night that we encountered pro-Palestinians. That shocked me, because I thought they were holding posters of the hostages, and they were holding posters of dead Gazan children accusing Israel of genocide. That totally shocked me. I couldn't believe it. Mark had a lovely debate. And that was to me a shocker, that I didn't expect to see, and it made a big impression on me. Besides the fact of the, seeing all the IDF sacrificing their lives, and they've got these Jewish people that are not supporting their country. And even here in the streets of the Jewish people not supporting, that to me is unacceptable, and I get very angry towards that attitude. And like I said, Bibi was there, we met, well, we didn't meet him, he was following us, but we met hostage survivors, we met families of hostages, we met families that have lost loved ones, we met survivors of the Nova Festival who came with us on that very special day when we went and saw the Nova site and the kibbutz and waved at the people in Gaza. But they're so close, it was astonishing to me. But those people, and I met Sasha, we met Sasha, the hostage, the Russian hostage guy. He sat next to me on the bus. I should have shown him a picture of my Christmas tree. I didn't think of that because I have a Christmas tree that I put up at Christmas. It had 101 yellow ribbons on it for all the hostages. And one of those ribbons actually was for him. But I didn't think of showing him the tree. I actually, on hindsight, should have, because I think he would have appreciated. But it was a shock to me that I saw him 1 week being released, and the next thing he's sitting on the bus, and I'm asking him and his girlfriend when they're going to get married. It just was surreal. And like I said, meeting all the families, we met Eric Seagull, what's his name? Keith Seagull's sister-in-law, who happened to be South African. She spoke to us at Hostage Square, and to me it was surreal. All these people that I go in the streets and scream and hold the posters and hear the news about them. They were in our face, so to speak, and that was what made it special for me, is those people that I met. And I loved it, and I hope that I do get to go back. And I'm looking for a Jewish husband.
It's 8:05.
Okay, so maybe what we could do, if there's any questions or whatever, and then maybe we'll take a little break if people want to get a drink, and then we can carry on for a bit longer.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about how you felt, your experience?
Yeah, Niak has a question. Yeah, let's go with Niak's question first.
Yeah, the lady first actually telling us about war, and she said when she was there, she feeling really safe. I want to ask her, before she went to Israel, how she feel, and how actually things gonna be happen in Israel, and what's the difference between, the feeling before into the Israel and after actually. This is, which is I'm looking for to find out what's the difference. And the second question, it's yeah, because I want to know more and more. We are here to learn. Yeah, the second question is about the meeting the hostages. Loss, everywhere you can see. What do you think about the hostage, their feeling about you as a foreign went to their country and want to knowing what's happening in past, did you ask them, did you ask the guy actually about the time when he was in hostage, or
We had very little
you
time.
didn't feel it's not right to ask, you know? This is
I'll let you answer. I'll let you answer that in a second. So, who was the was it Wendy? Not? Okay.
Actually, I think, Mark, you should not be let off the hook because you did such a great job of organising. It was such a great idea to turn what might have been just a trip by yourself into a tour and to bring us all along with you and give us all the opportunity. And you were very good at it. You were very, I think, you know, the phrase herding cats came very quickly to mind because the whole process of these somewhat undisciplined, mostly women. I think, you know, it was quite an achievement to get us from place to place without too many casualties. So I'm really, you know, I'd like to congratulate you. And I think in terms of answering your question, I kind of, in a way, I suspended expectations. You know, apart from knowing I'd never been there before, I kind of didn't really know what to expect. I knew it would be safe in the sense, you know, you're not allowed to go if it's not safe. You get told that you won't get insurance if it's not safe. So I knew it would be safe enough to go. But I think the thing that was interesting about it was that contrast of being safe in the country while the country was at war, and that sense that you got of people, the population feeling on the one hand under siege. There's no doubt that people felt under siege. At the same time carrying on with their normal lives. So you'd go around, I mean there were a lot of IDF and soldiers and various different types of police around, and you saw people carrying guns, and even ununiformed people carrying guns. But there was no sort of like sense of militarist. It didn't feel at all militaristic. It just felt like they were there, and life was kind of normal, and yet there were guns around. And that was kind of strange because you felt it was very normal. So you'd see, you know, and the other thing that I think that struck me really was how diverse the place was. So you'd see, I mean, I tried to get photographs of these groups of really mixed kids, you know, brown, white, black kids, all with their little, what they called hats on, gathering round together. Because that's what they just hung out together, and they did it, you know, they lived their lives together. And you just felt, well, this is great to see, and you know that that's not what people expect to see outside the country. So it was just trying to get a sense of that normality at the same time as being aware. And I think what Breach said was very much on, you know, on the point about, you know, it is a country that is quite militarised actually, but it's not done in a way that's at all aggressive. And I think actually the other point about how really it is a democratic country, and that comes across very well. You know, the protesters, the people who hate their governments, the people who are wanting their government to stop fighting, are allowed to say that. You know, they're not prevented in any way from doing that. And so there's a sort of like, and you know actually there's like from a Jewish news syndicate conference that we attended, you know there's a lot of criticism of the government there, but also a sense of that a support for the war that's happening now, but also a sense of criticism about how do we get here, and a huge simmering debate, which really doesn't surface too much while the country's at war, but it could become quite serious in due course. So, you know, there are definite tensions there, and those tensions are allowed to exist and be expressed, obviously not violently, but you know, they're allowed to exist and be expressed as they should be in any democratic country. And I think that was that sense of the country is, it's a proper country that you could recognise that you want to live in, you know, yeah, it's just a normal place, but it's a war and it's going through a really horrible crisis, and you want it to live through that crisis and come out the other end much stronger. But I do think Mark should express his own
Just to add that, yes, it's like what a democracy, a real actual democracy in the 21st century is like, it was to me. All these arguments, all these flaws, but there's just this sense of coherence and yes, not just what Israel represents, but the fact that they are fighting an existential war for their survival, and they're against such super enormous odds, not just in terms of public opinion, and yet they're so humane, such a sense of ceremony, tradition, respect for life, and joy in life.
I opened my report back with me telling my mom, I'm going to Israel, and my mom, isn't it dangerous? And I felt very safe there. I felt very safe because, well, first of all, I felt very looked after. You know, there is a thorough, check of who is going where. So in the station, for example, they check your bag, so you feel that, they are so on Israelis, corp, military corp. They're so on their job. It's amazing. And then
Just to add that, interestingly, where we didn't feel it was a country at war, I mean, yes, you got subconsciously, and a couple of times the alarms did go off, but other Israelis said to us that they also, in a way, felt the same, because they were not living down south, they weren't living in one of the areas that is constantly bombarded, and where the sirens were going off in the middle of the night, nightly, where they're having to get their children out of bed to go down to the shelters. So that not only were we not aware of the reality in certain parts, but actually a lot of Israelis were themselves not aware of the reality, depending on where in Israel they actually lived, if that makes sense, because they weren't subject to constant bombardments every single night for a period of, maybe a week or so, having to get the children up and into the shelters.
And we now had a bonus thanks to the Houthi. Yes, BA cancelled our flight, so we had an extra week there. Oh, we now, so we didn't want to come back, so we paid the Houthis.
I wanted to say something about what one of the women said at the Shabbat dinner, which really struck me. I stand up, I don't know. But it's just that she said that she and her friends thought that it's a good thing, actually, that the people that were killed were all the peaceniks on the southern border with Gaza, rather than in the West Bank. She said, if it had happened on the West Bank, we would all have said, oh, it's really bad for people in the West Bank, it's understandable. But because it happened among people who used to take Gazans to hospital, who considered themselves their friends, who trusted them, it made everybody in Israel, she said, wake up. We've been putting up with people having to run for the shelters in the north and the south of Gaza for years, while we ignore it in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem in the middle. But it made us all realise that they really are out to kill us and to destroy us. And I think that's something that, people in the West just are not aware of.
It's exactly what it is.
Well, since everybody's saying thank yous, thank you for coming with me, everybody. So I don't know if people know the background. So my birthday last year, everybody very kindly contributed to some money towards me going on a trip to Israel for my birthday, which was amazing, really kind and generous of everybody. So this is people from Stop the Hate, from Our Fight campaigners, they all got together. We had a birthday party and yeah, all sorts of gifts, but the main gift was this ticket to voucher for going to Israel. But of course, then what happened when people heard I was going, they said, can I come? And then we decided to turn it into this trip. One of the reasons being, if you recall, at the end of last year, towards the end of last year, that this has been happening for a long time now, but we didn't really realise so much. But towards the end of last year, people were talking about Holocaust Memorial Day, and they were, as we now know, relativising it. And by relativising it, I mean that they were using other wars like Gaza and putting them into the same bucket as the Holocaust. In other words, the Holocaust was being devalued and being, as some people have called, de-Judified. So we started to do lots of things around it. And then when we discovered that there was a different Holocaust Memorial Day in Israel, Yom HaShoah, then we started to build the trip around it. So that was the thing. So anyway, thank you so much. And I did really enjoy it. You say herding cats, but it was really, like, what can you do? It's like, there's no point in getting stressed out about, 15 cats that all go off in different directions. Yeah, sometimes people would say to me, is everybody back on the bus? And I go, if they're not, they've got to get home. So, no, it was great. And we'll definitely do it again next year. I think we should do it again next year. So my moments, I think, so people ask me, did anything surprise me? People often, when chatting about this. And I have to say, there was nothing that really surprised me. I think the points that Jan and others have made about a country at war and standing up for itself and public service, all of those things, I was kind of expecting them. But I think everything I was expecting was way more than I was expecting. So, for example, I've said this to a few people, but
the prices, is that what's
surprise.
Prices.
Oh, the prices. I thought you said something. Yeah. No. Well, I couldn't work it out. I was walking around in a day trying to multiply by 5 and divide by 2. And I had no idea whether I was getting a bargain or, So, but the things like, for example, that people have mentioned, the young people, the young soldiers. I was expecting that, because friends here have got kids who are in the army. And so we've kind of met people before, or if we haven't met them directly, we've heard stories, so we know what kind of goes on, and the kind of young people that they are. But when you actually meet them, like the example Michael gave of this young woman in Herzl, in the cemetery, and she was part of the education process for the young IDF soldiers. And she would regularly bring a group of soldiers to just come to the graves. And if you don't know, the cemetery, Herzl Cemetery, it's got Golda Meir, and it's got all these famous names. But now it's got a kind of, maybe you've seen it at some point coming up there, this slightly higgledy-piggledy sort of tent canopy covering the new graves for the young soldiers that have been killed in Gaza. And part of what they're doing, these young soldiers, what they do is they bring them to see the grave. And these graves are completely different to the sort of Golda Meir style one. They've got, a bottle of the favourite beer of one of the young soldiers, or they'll have a surfboard. There'll be posters and it's all very. You can see the direct connection that the young people who go to these graves have with their, well, Michael said comrades, with their people that they fight alongside and fought alongside and died with. So that was, and the way this young woman spoke to us and the way she talked, like Michael said, about her future, when he said cutting it up, I don't know, Yeah, cutting up her ID card is what she was talking about. So when she's finished her service, she's going to cut up her ID card to go travelling. But so what I'm saying is that I was expecting young people to be like something like this, but when they were actually, I mean, there was so much more than what I was expecting. So that was quite profound, because when you, like everybody said, it's nothing like here, and I don't mean that in the sense of, oh, young people, you know, leave chewing gum on the seat on the bus, that kind of thing. I mean, it's nothing like that in the entire, from top to bottom. This idea of public service, this idea of celebrating what you have, looking to the future. I mean, there's nothing like it in the countries that we live in. The other thing that I found quite profound was the responsibility that people take for having good conversations. So who described the Shabbat dinner? Hmm? Oh yeah. So he was great, wasn't he? So the father, he'd taken the trouble to prepare a whole speech, didn't he? I mean, he made this great speech, like Greaves says, about civilization and where we stand. He took the trouble to thank us for coming. I mean, the whole thing, it was a proper speech. I mean, the guy is a top advisor to the government, so I mean, he should have been able to speak. But, you know, I mean, still, it was like, it was really kind of him to take us in. And it was a proper speech where we all afterwards were like, wow, you know.
And second-hand guy.
Yeah.
That was his second thing.
Yeah.
That
So,
was the main thing.
and I felt that that sense of, I don't know what you call it really, sense of the moment, recognising the moment, recognising that there is a need to have that engagement. Another example, Michael referred to Mike's Place. So whilst we were there, it was the anniversary of the Mike's Place bombing, which is a bar in Tel Aviv. Basically, these terrorists, Brits, there were 2 Brits, went over to Israel with the express aim of committing a terrorist act somewhere. And the story is pretty grim, really, because what they did is if you go to Mike's Place, which we did for the celebration on Independence Day, it's very tight, it's very packed, lots of people enjoy themselves, there's music, there's a band playing, everyone's drinking, there's food, there's people, waitresses, you know, it's a very tight, small venue with lots of people in. And these 2 suicide bombers luckily didn't get in, they blew themselves up. The security guy managed to stop them getting in, and one of them blew himself up outside, the other one blew himself up later and was found floating in the sea, but that's a separate thing. So luckily he blew himself up outside and 3 people were killed, 3 people who were queuing up were killed, but obviously if he'd got in, it would have been a completely different story. It was the anniversary of that attack whilst we were there. So we, through somebody that we know here, knew we were going, made a connection over there, and we met with the parents of one of the victims, Ram Baron, I think Baron or Baron, one of the victims of the attack. His parents regularly, every year, they do something in memory of their son. And so we were put in touch with them. And we approached them and said, would you meet us in the bar? You know, we've got this group of people. And after a bit of toing and froing, we arranged a time and they came and met us. And we just thought that was, you know, very kind of them. They came to talk to us, and we had a really interesting conversation and had some photos and everything. But during the course of his explanation to us, he then revealed that they nearly didn't come. And this is what I mean about having a sense of moment, right? So he then explained their thinking and their thought process. And honestly, this is one of the most moving things that I experienced during the time, because the way he explained it is, he said, when he got my message, he and his wife, this is the father, he and his wife discussed whether to come and meet us. And because of that, because it's the anniversary, they get called on by the local council They get called on by other organisations. They do a family thing at the grave. They do a family thing at home. So they've got a lot going on. It's the anniversary of their son's death. Of course, they've got a lot going on. So they initially said to each other, let's not do this. But they didn't tell me. I didn't know this. But they said, let's not do this. And they put it to one side. But he said, then I sent through. I didn't know they were going through this thought process. I just thought, oh, I'll send him information about the trip. To let him know, who's on the trip, because everybody wrote a little profile of why they were on the trip. I thought, oh, it might be interesting for him to know who's on the trip. So I sent it through, not knowing that at this point he was having second thoughts about meetings. He then read all of the profiles, and this is him explaining to us in the cafe at the bar. He then read all of the profiles, and then he turned to his wife and he said, we have to go and meet these people. And so already I'm like, wow, what a guy. And then he sits there and he goes, who's Elisabetta? And he says, Elisabetta. And then he says, thank you for coming. He'd read her profile. Who's Briege? And he went through and he'd read all the profiles. He'd read about us. He said to his wife, we must meet these people. He came to the cafe. He had to go. They left cooking at home, on the stove kind of thing. They were in the middle of expecting all of these relatives to come. They came to see us, they talked to us, and then they had to rush off. And it was just incredible that the idea that this guy had this sense of the kind of gratitude that people have talked about, but also his ability to put that into words was just incredible. I was just, I found that one of the most moving moments actually, because this family, they're the people who'd lost a son during this terrorist attack, and yet they recognised that it was important also to look outwards. I mean, he said that himself, important to look outwards and to engage with people like us so that we can continue this dialogue, we continue this campaigning. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many more, as everybody said, so many more experiences we could count. I don't know whether we want to have any more questions or whether people want to get a drink and then come back, or are there any more questions? Yeah.
I was going to ask, did anyone have sort of like an anxiety or worry that you've heard all this stuff about Israel and the bad stuff? Maybe it's true. Did any of you know? You weren't worried. Okay. I mean, I've been to Israel many times, so
I think,
yeah.
okay, just from all my friends like you who I know, and this would be interesting to have a vote on or get input on, but I suspect that our Israeli friends were more worried that was what we might think than we were.
Okay, so it's not such a silly question.
No, it's not a silly question at all.
Okay.
No, it's not a silly question, but it's
Right.
interesting that I think there was a kind of, I got a sense that there was a bit of a fear that, people wanted us to enjoy it and experience it, but also there was a kind of fear, how are they going to come back? Are they going to come back still on the right side?
Well, I'm so pleased.
I did see a few horns, but I decided I didn't really believe they were there.
Any,
Did you have the opportunity to talk to any Arab Israelis?
you think you are? Wow.
Israeli spin by Israeli stores. All about the yellow stores.
In Jerusalem, yeah. But in Tel Aviv, you have white as well. Thank you.
I'm an Israeli and I'm quite mad and quite white, but all I can tell you, Israel is a fantastic country.
Yes.
To arrive in Israel is security. When I was 20, I'm 88. When I was 20, I was was going to the concert, left the concert, the opera, everything, after drinks and everything, at 1 o'clock in the morning, and walked all the way home from concert to Tel Aviv. You know, all the streets is secure.
Yeah.
And if you stand on the street and scream, help, help, everybody will be open and will help you.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is us. This is us Jews.
Yeah.
And we stick together.
Yeah.
And believe me, we have one country, and that's it.
Yes.
That's it. I was beautifully born in Bulgaria. My mother is Russian, my father is German, and we had nothing after the Holocaust. Nothing, 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 nothing. And there was a schnorrer on the street. You know what is a schnorrer? There was a schnorrer on the street. It was Friday. We had 3 potatoes. 1 room, we all lived in 1 room. And my father brought the schnorrer upstairs. My mother said, "What do you want? We are 4 and you have 3 potatoes. You bring 1 more." She said, "So what? We have more than he has." This is Jewish.
So that's Dora, my next door neighbour. Yeah, no, so you, yes, so, well, you met the delivery guy.
But did you not talk to him as well?
I did come out and talk to him, and we also met the only person who had a bottle opener was Mohammed, the security guard, at the hotel when we were doing the late night drinking. For some reason, the bar was shut, wasn't it? I don't know why that was.
The microphone one was taken in.
Oh, that's true, actually, yeah,
On the
eventually,
way
yes, on the
home,
second night, yeah. Yeah, we had a coffee, Kerper would have been able to tell the story of the coffee. Oh, yeah.
We have a dumpling.
Yeah. The best coffee in Jerusalem, apparently.
Well, yes, and we were in in the old city, and we stopped at this lovely coffee shop with different types of other activities, like maybe like restaurant activities. He was preparing concoction to cure prostate cancer, and also, and he was really lamenting the fact that there were no tourists. So this was, his major preoccupation was the fact that there were no tourists, and he was delighted, to have us, because he was saying that probably he, have 3 tourists every 4 or 5 days, so it's pretty much deserted. And he was telling us his life. He was very religious, and he was absolutely not talking about Israel, or, I was expecting maybe he is critical of Israel, but actually he was not. He was really quite not wanting to talk about politics as such. He was thinking that politics at this moment in time is really toxic for him. And he introduced us his son. His son entering introduced us his son. He was a normal type of person that we met in the old Jerusalem. What
So he was an Arab Israeli.
It was Arab, and Israeli, because he was living there, and yes, it was Arab Israeli. The thing that was to me a little bit strange was the fact that we were not allowed to go to the Arab site. So there is a group of soldiers, and you're not allowed to go, not even on the steps.
There's your apartheid.
And you can go, yes, exactly. And that, you know, the religion, the old Jerusalem really reveal how tolerant, yeah, that part of the world is, Israel is, because to have three religions together, and all the pilgrims, you know, going with different type of intent, and that is, for me, very, very extraordinary.
So the compare of the first event we went to, the Hashor event, was an Ethiopian Jew. The singer at the JNS conference that we attended was Yemeni woman. A lot of the speakers at the JNS conference were non-Jewish or Israeli non-Jewish Israelis, or Israeli Arabs, or whatever. There was quite a diversity of people there as speakers. And the people we met, we spent a very lovely day relaxing in Jaffa. And Jaffa is almost an entirely Arab community. And you'd sort of like walk down the streets, the cafes, and sort of along the pier and that sort of thing. And it was very clear, a very Arab city, including women wearing their burqas and their hijabs and everything. So I think it's you talk to people. I've talked to people afterwards, and there are sort of certain criticisms, critical Arab Israelis, people who are sort of dissatisfied with the way that Israel is from it, and there's quite an interesting split between the Arabs who call themselves Palestinians and Arabs who refuse the name Palestinians, and then that's something else that kind of happens. But I think that there are things like a question I would have in the long term is that one of the problems I think that the state has is that it's very much surrounded by Arab countries, and it's how does it survive the Jewish state in the long run without stopping non-Jewish entrance, people entering into. So it's that sort of how does it maintain itself as a Jewish state, and how does that survive within a world which is becoming increasingly mixed in a way. But I think a lot of that is to do with, potentially to do with a strong sense of traditional identity, which hopefully gets transmitted not necessarily in a religious sense, but in a sense of, this is our country, this is who we are. But I think they do have to, there is a sense that there's a fragility at that level, I felt, about how does Israel survive as a Jewish state surrounded by Arab states, as the only Jewish state in the world. And that's something that's not just a military thing, it's also to do with ideology and how do you continue to shape yourself as a state. Yeah.
Vicky and I met an Arab man at the souk when I went to buy I Love Israel t-shirt. He was wonderful, and everybody tells me you have to barter and make a deal. Yeah. So he was selling the shirt for 40 shekels. So I went to him 35 shekels. But before that, he asked me about all this. So I told him while we were there. So I said to him, 35 shekels. And he says, no, for you I'll give it for 30 shekels. So he was wonderful. And we've got a lovely picture, a Christian, a Jew, and a Muslim.
Yeah, all besties.
Yeah, we became very good friends. And then she got a t-shirt from him as well. But so it was like normal. And then I went to the Rock of the Dome. I think I was the only one of the party that did. The Dome of the Rock. And as I got there, this Muslim gentleman came over to speak to me because I was there by myself. And subconsciously I said to him, you know, I can feel the holiness coming from underneath my feet when I'm on this ground. And then I realized, because my reference was to Solomon's temple, and he just looked at me and he says to me, he goes every day into this mosque, he says, and I pray for peace, for Israel and for Gaza and for everybody. He says, because I was born here, and he says, that's what I do every day. So that touched me a lot. And then the third encounter I had is the last day I went to Caesarea on a tour, on a coach tour, and our guide driver was a Palestinian, because we were with two Americans and he says he's Palestinian. So I asked him, are you Arab Palestinian or are you Jewish Palestinian? Because Palestine is Israel, so I wanted to know where you were. Because I knew exactly what he was meaning. So he says to me, no, he was Arab Palestinian. So I said, okay, because I want to know the difference, because I said when people say Palestine, I get confused, even if it's in Israel. So those were the three encounters. They were all lovely people, but that one at the soup was wonderful.
Yeah, but also we spoke to Arabians who, as I said previously, who their businesses were suffering terribly. You know, they just wanted peace. They wanted to get on with life, get on with their Israeli friends, neighbours. You know, not have to suffer. You know, in this situation that's ruining their livelihoods, basically. Yeah.
We wanted to know, what did you pay in the end?
Your
Your t-shirt. You started.
You get the size.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Too high.
10 shekels per hour started.
7.
I did.
But she took commission. Believe me, she took commission.
You said you weren't exactly surprised by anything, but I was wondering if there was anything that anyone was led to reconsider as a result of their visit.
Reconsider.
Reconsider our support towards Israel.
No, obviously not, but just, was there anything you sort of reflected on that sort of changed your perception or whatever?
Well, everything.
Certainly I was astonished by the memorials everywhere. There were some really beautiful memorials. I said this before, but Sederot, the site of Sederot police station, which within a year or so they just transformed into this beautiful park rather than doing a Grenfell Tower thing on it and leaving it up in all its horror. And there's a beautiful ship memorial on Tel Aviv beach. About what Britain, just terrible what Britain did to the Jews in the wars. Shocked me. But there's the hostages things everywhere. Banners in the middle of nowhere, posters in the middle of nowhere, on people's hands on balconies, ribbons, stickers everywhere. And there's a country the size of Wales, and I wonder how big a country has to be before you lose that sense of community. When you think about ancient Athens, because I do kept seeing parallels with ancient Athens in Israel. But the sense of solidarity, the resilience, we were all astonished by the sense of resilience. So yes, as I think Marcus said, what you expected, only bigger. And I certainly wasn't expecting all the ceremony, tradition, the fact that when the sirens go for, I can't remember which memorial this was, but memorials all the time, Remembrance Day or something, everybody on the boardwalk is walking their kids or their dogs or whatever, they just stop and stand still. And you think, that just does not happen, you know, Remembrance Day, 3 minutes like, it doesn't happen in this country. And yeah, it was inspiring, it was just so inspiring.
The thing that was clarified for me in particular was an answer to this two-state solution thing. Because before I went, to be honest, in as much as I thought a lot about it, I thought, well, that makes sense. You're going to have Palestinians, Arabs, and you've got to have Jews. And a two-state solution seems kind of sensible. But in being exposed to discussions, in talking to people, in learning a bit more about the history, distant and recent, it became pretty apparent that the Palestinian representatives had no interest whatsoever in having two states. They wanted one state, and that meant they wanted to take over Israel, to obliterate Israel. And obviously that is not the solution as far as Israelis are concerned, because they want the only country that they have and the only democratic country in that part of the world. And this is turning out to be a fight where somebody has to win, and some have to lose. And it seems that Israel is in a fight to the end.
I think, I can't remember if it was you, Wendy, that mentioned, and it was extremely striking, that the southern, the attacks that happened, southern Israel, that they were particularly left-wing. The kibbutzim, most of the ones that were violently attacked, were very left-wing. They had absolutely welcomed the Gazans into their life, their homes, their community. They wanted, they were so idealistic. There was one woman, I can't remember her name, you can Google her, but, and I was told this by quite a few people, she was particularly, there's a very, very left-wing organisation, and she belonged to it, not just a left-wing, but a particularly left-wing organisation. And I know Kafaraz is also extreme left-wing, that suffered so violently. But this woman, she did so much. She was one of the main involved in bringing the Gazans and trying to blend.
Drive them to hospitals.
Wasn't that Vivian Silva?
Huh?
Yeah.
Women Wage Peace.
Say again?
Women Wage Peace organisation.
I don't know the name. I just know maybe it is that. But horrifically and tellingly, absolutely tellingly, a point was made to make a note of this woman's home, and her home was one of the first to be burnt, and she herself was mutilated. And it's like Hamas, the supporters, want to make a point. We don't care how good you are to us. We don't care what you do for us. When we get the chance, we will kill you. And that was such a strong statement. The same as, oh, sorry, my brain's gone. The head of Hamas that organised all that been in prison, Sinwar, had his life saved in an Israeli prison. He had a brain tumour, he would have died. Israeli surgeons operated on him, and he quite openly and honestly, respect him for his honesty, said, "Thank you for saving my life, but please know that if at any time in the future I get a chance to kill you, I will do so." And that is the bottom line.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And you've got the time, please.
10 to 9.
Very quickly on the lighthouse.
On the mic.
Just very quickly.
So the second night we were in Jerusalem and everybody had arrived the day before, full of non-Jews, never been to Israel before, and we go to this Israeli restaurant. I was hoping they'd book this restaurant called the Bar Grill. I hadn't been there before. And I was hoping it would be an Israeli, and it was. We got there was all Shrumas in there, Orthodox, different people. And 3 men came and sat down. One really, really very, very religious man, sits, pious, everything. Oh, couple one. And he comes in with 2 good young guys. And suddenly in the restaurant, the Ojo Tel Tov comes on. So what do? Marguerite's the first one up. With the flags, we're up, we're dancing, we're singing. And these guys start clapping to the music. And all of a sudden, this guy, a very religious man, joins in the singing. And I can only describe him, Avi Piton.
We've seen your
Really
saw your video,
And I can
yeah.
only describe him as the Pavarotti of Israel. So it's our second night there. We've never been to Israel before. We've been to Yad Vashem for 2 days, so you can imagine. And then all of a sudden, Avi Piton gets up and then entertains us for the next half hour. And sings with us. Sings Am Yisrael Chai, Yerushalayim Shel Zahar. You know, wasn't it wonderful? It was absolutely wonderful, wasn't it? Just beautiful. I had to share that with
There were loads of those kinds of.
Yeah,
so one of my favourite moments was because I still haven't quite understood why we couldn't get a drink after 11 o'clock. But maybe that will be explained to me at some point. But so we took to buying drink in the off-license or in the supermarket, and then sitting up late in the hotel area, which was great. You know, that was good. And we had wine, with peanut snack things that everyone gets addicted to. And then one evening we're sitting there late drinking, and that young man comes down with his baby.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that guy? And he comes down, and his partner, his wife, was a blogger, so she needed peace and quiet upstairs. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. You know, she needed peace and quiet, and they had a young baby, and he was responsible for them. So he comes downstairs into the foyer, sees us there, and we offer him a beer, and he sits down. The baby's passed around from one to the other, which was brilliant. And so all these little moments of engagement were really, really great. I was going to suggest, oh, go on, no, you can, but I was going to suggest if people want to get a drink, we can do it either way. We could have a quick break so you can get a drink, and then we'll come back. We actually have this, they've let us stay, normally they shut at 9:30, but they've let us stay till 10. You don't have to stay till 10. So we've got time if you want to grab a drink, and then come back. We won't go on too long because not because of that, but it looks like everybody nominated Eve to have a word with me about not going on too long. All you cowards stood behind Eve. Okay, so we won't go on too long. And then,
midnight.
yeah, we're going to be kicked out.
But you said till 10:30.
Sorry?
You said till 10:30.
No, 10.
Oh,
I said they normally close at
in the email, I think it said till 10:30.
It's non-contractual.
Oh, no, I might have had to put something in the ticket. Anyway, but there are a couple of people here who would also like to say a few words. So Ollie, who joined us. So one of the things that I didn't mention, or nobody mentioned, which was really, really nice, is that other people who weren't on the trip, when they heard that we were going, said, oh, can we meet up with you when we're there? So Gina joined us, lots of people will know Gina a lot. Hadar, who lives over there, a lot of people know Hadar, she came and joined us. Ollie came and joined us, Tony, met up with us in Mike's place. So it was really nice that constantly people were dropping in and coming and saying hello, or even in Ollie's case, getting free tickets to things. So maybe you can say whatever you would like to say.
Yeah, please. I don't really like speaking in public, so I'll keep it short to half an hour. I met up with the guys in Jerusalem. I couldn't find them anywhere. There's cats everywhere. So, yeah, I met you guys at the outskirts of Yad Vashem, and I didn't really know who I was meeting because I just know Mark. So, yeah, I met you guys, and it wasn't really until afterwards that it hit me, but I had a chance to reflect on my lonely journey home back to Tel Aviv on my own. Yeah, I did say home there, but it's not yet. Give it 2 months yesterday, it will be my own. And I remember saying to, I think it might have been you and Kirk, I said, oh, this is the courtyard of Yad Vashem. These trees are for the righteous among the nations. They're planted for each person who saved, a non-Jewish person who saved a Jewish life in the Holocaust. And I said to Kirk, it kind of reminds me of you guys. And she just looked at me and said, no, don't be ridiculous. And it's a big comparison, but it's the only one that I can try and make, and that is that you guys are I was just thinking, like, these guys owe us nothing, and you stood up for us out of nowhere, and you got on a plane to what everyone seems to say is a scary place, and I think a lot of us might disagree now. And you came, and you mentioned whilst you spoke that people made a fuss of you. You didn't use those words, but they're the words that I will use as I'm 27 and my vocab's different. But you deserve it. I mean, you came and you've done something amazing, and you've inspired people, and all these people here are here to hear you guys. And I think it's a real credit to yourselves, and I think we should have another round of applause.
Any more surprises? No, thank you. That's incredible. But as you know, hopefully, what is coming across is that we were inspired. You know, it's. I think that's the thing we need to share and try and get out there. That's why we're doing these report backs. That's why Wendy's been putting together the reports that people have done. That's why we want to get all the photos and the video out. It's because we want people to also kind of see what we saw. You know, also be inspired. We want people to. I mean, Jan was saying earlier, this is an amazing country. Anyway, I promised Eva would go on too long. Anybody else? Oh, sorry. Vivek, do you want to come in? Thank you. So you spoke the other evening outside.
Kings.
Yes, yes, that was great. Okay, and you said that you went to Israel on your own last year. Okay.
I didn't want to go in a group because then you have to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Group was at 8:45. Hi, my name is Dr. Vivek. I belong to India and I'm a Hindu. So, as I said last week in near Kings, that as a kid, I was following Israel because I lived in a part of India which was worse than Israel. We were surrounded by more enemies than Israel can ever have in number. I was from Kashmir. So 99% of people are jihadis, and we were 1% living in them. You can understand how it is to live among jihadis. It's not easy. It's very difficult. So as a kid also, I was very much, wanted to know how do other people, other communities or other cultures cope with this kind of scenario. So I must have been 7 or 8. My father was, he was well-read and used to bring all Time, Newsweek, Life, everything. So that was my basic knowledge from there. My father used to discuss things. I knew about Khalida, that lady, Khalid, who used to, hijack plane TWA in 1970. So I knew all those things. My father used to discuss these things with me. So when you have a good father and you're only 7 or 8, your knowledge gets accelerated because they explain everything. Who are Jews? What happened to them? And why did they live in ghettos? And what, why were they prosecuted along the time? So I knew all these things at a very young age. So when I grew up, my heroes were Golda Meir and Moshe Dayan. They were my classmates' heroes were Clint Eastwood and Steve McQueen, and they used to ask me, why are these? I said, listen to her quotes, the way she speaks. She's chain smoker, but see how she speaks about the country and the Jews. She said that Jews are the people who can't afford to be pessimistic, ever. And it was true, and Moshe Dayan used to be such a great general. He was such a no-nonsense general. Before the Egyptians or other armies could know to fight, he had bombarded their airfield and removed all the aircraft. So they were my heroes. So then happened this 1972 Munich Black September, where they killed 11. It felt home. It felt as if my own relatives were dead. I was a very young guy. So I had to follow that, who are these guys? At that time, the problem is that we think it's a new problem. It's not a new problem. The problem Jews are facing is from the 7th century. It's not a new thing. The whole of Middle East was Jewish. And whereas, a few years back, there was an Israeli diplomat who was asking the Middle Eastern Arab, and they said, you people are crooks and you are killing people. He said, where are the Jews of Middle East? Where are the Jews of Iraq? There was a very famous viral video. So my father used to tell me the whole Middle East was Jews, and they just basically were prosecuted, not now, they've been prosecuted since 7th century at various times. So so Israel and Jews were always very close to me. So I thought when I grew up, I was following Israel, I was following what they do as much as I could. There was no internet, so my father got me, I was like a sponge. So I wanted to know everything. So he said the best thing is to get him Encyclopedia Britannica. So he brought me those 32 volumes of Encyclopedia Britannica. I just went through it, Then I told my father, Star of David is same as what we Hindus also worship. We have the same thing. So he said, yes, the same. And so I had those kind of curiosities as a kid. So I always wanted to go to Israel. And the best thing was that wherever I was working in this country, I had a lot of Jewish friends in medicine and all that. So they were very curious, why do you know so much about Israel? I said, I live in a country, in a place which is full of the same enemies. And the worst thing happened in 1990. We were 500,000 Hindus. We had an exodus and a Holocaust in Kashmir, where one fine morning we were told either you convert or keep your women here or die. So we preferred, we went to Delhi and other places. We had to move in the middle of 19th January, the date was 1990. That is our Holocaust. In Kashmir, it is very cold. We had to run away to other places to save our women. So these things keep on continuing. The villains are same, and that's what I told the other day, what needs to be done. So I always wanted to go to Israel. So I have a group of friends. They got me in touch with Israelis in Ashdod. Ashdod is a port near Tel Aviv. So I told them I want to go to Israel last June. This is more than welcome. I said, how many are coming? I said, I'm coming alone. I don't want to get, I want to know Israel on my own. So I landed in Israel, and the first thing was immigration officer told me, why are you coming to Israel? I said, I like Israel. He said, foolishly, 3 years back, I wanted to surprise my wife. I got, taken away by this Hollywood. So I said, I told my wife, bring your passport to airport, let's go somewhere. And she said, where are we going? I said, for 3 days I will take you to somewhere. So she thought I was taking him to Jerusalem. I took her to Beirut.
No.
So Beirut, I took her to show that Beirut at that time, 6-7 years back, was little safe. I said how people can still live together after the accord. There was a Beirut Accord and Taif Accord it was called. So he said he found that ticket. He said, why? I explained. He said, you're stupid. Why would you take your wife to... I said, my wife also said the same thing. I said, you're stupid. Because in the Vivek, 90% of the tourists get kidnapped from the airport itself. You're taking me to Beirut. So anyway, he was convinced that, then he said, there was a big thing, welcome to Israel near him in the India. I said, can I take a selfie? He said, yeah, go ahead. So took a selfie, went out. The first soldier I saw, he nodded, because the soldiers are so young, as a lot of people have said. They look like my sons. So I was very respectful to them, and they could know that I had an Indian flag, so they know that Indians are great friends of Israelis. So my other friend was waiting in the car for me, and they took me to Ashdod, and now I was into Israel. They said, I want to go to Galilee Sea, I want to go to Golan Heights, I want to go everywhere. So they knew this guy is very curious, so they took me everywhere. So I went to Galilee, saw the water, they showed me the Golan Heights and all that. Then they also took me to Jerusalem. Jerusalem was I was really stunned. The train journey only takes about 30 minutes from Ashdod. Fast, the trains are better than what you have here, they're great. And in the train I learned something, like they say, you can see whole of India in Indian railways. It's like a museum. The whole of India you can see if you travel. The whole of Israel I could see when I was traveling to Jerusalem. There were young soldiers, there were commuters who wanted to go to work, and they all were so silent. They all had a prayer book of different sizes. One was very small, one was very big. They were all very religious. In the morning, they all are very quiet in the train, and train is double-decker. So even in the staircase going up, soldiers are sitting there, and they are, everybody is like community, but everybody is silent. They are praying and all that. So when I went to Jerusalem, I had my Jewish friends were with me. So I went to the Western Wall. So I did all those things. I put my thing. I said, God save the Jews. I wrote a piece of paper, put it in the crack, and I spent a lot of time there. I didn't know there was an alcove inside where all the Jewish students and scholars read Torah inside the Western Wall. So I went there, spent my time there. There was school kids who were from the school. They had come, and the Jewish teacher was teaching them about the history of that inside the. I didn't know that existed, but I spent a lot of time there. Took a lot of photographs. I wish I had brought my photographs there. Then I also wanted to go to the Solomon's temple, which they call the mosque and other things. And at that point, I learned that 99% of the Jews don't want to go there. I didn't know this. It's very sentimental. They don't want to go upstairs. So my host didn't want to go. He said, you go ahead. So I went to IDF. I said, I want to go ahead. He said, do you want to go alone? Or do you want to go with the Jewish people? I said, I want to go with Jewish people. So they allow about 25 to 27 Jewish people to the Alaska complex and the Dome of the Rock. So we went there. They were very nice people. They had brought all the religious textbooks and all. So we went around, and the Israeli army were very nice to them. We were supposed to finish it in 30 minutes, but we took 2.5 hours, because at every point they knew where to stand and where to pray. So they were praying in a very harmonious way with the books they had got specially at different points around the complex. But the Israeli IDF were very, very sweet to us. They were young soldiers, and one of them offered to take my photographs. He took a beautiful photograph of me around the Golden Dome and all that. So that took place. We went back, lovely in that market where is run by Jews, the bazaar. The bazaar has the best sweets, and those olives are almost like golf balls. I never seen so big. They're Israeli olives, he told me. They're lovely. One has to have them. So then was my first Shabbat. I went to the family. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, fine. I'm a surgeon, so when they tell us, the nurses tell us to fasten the operation, we can do it anytime. We will fasten the operation. The thing is that, what should we be doing? The enemy is saying, and they muzzle us by calling it Islamophobia. Islamophobia is nothing but a gagging order, so that you can't speak. What Israel is facing today, India is also facing. The West will also face the same. The thing is that we should come with, I told the Israelis there also, a thing called Islamofascism. We should tell exactly the chapter and verse which tells them to kill us, and bring them to an interfaith conference, whether it be London or New York, all of them, even the Muslim clergies, and tell them the source lies in those books which tells them exactly what to do, what to kill. Chapter 9, verse 5 will tell them why to kill. And why should we be shy? We should not feel shy. We know exactly why they are doing it. And we should bring them to a conference and ask them that if you don't, the worst things are these moderate people. They also know what is written there, but they say, no, your interpretation is wrong. I said, if we are interpreting it wrong, why is the bloody your terrorists interpreting it right? So basically you are bigger crooks than the terrorists. At least terrorists is smart enough and he's frank enough to say what he's doing, and you guys are basically fooling us. So this thing can go. This can only finish when we have an international Islamophobic or Islamofactism conference, bringing everyone, all these bloody moderates who think they are moderate, they should also come and say, if this chapter and verse is not right, remove it. Because we cannot take this problem to our younger generation. If we have suffered, our younger kids, because I saw a lot of Jewish kids who called me uncle there, I could see in their eyes they want to enjoy life. We are forcing them by telling lies, no, British Prime Minister, Indian Prime Minister, no, it is a religion of peace. It's not a religion of peace. There's no peace there. Everybody is killing each other. So we should have this conference, bring everyone together and sort it out. Do you agree with me or not?
Yes.
So, final few, thank you very much for that, and thank you, Ollie, earlier. And, oh yes, and you're going to announce your...
I'm only going to be a few minutes, actually.
Oh, Jonathan went the week before us as well. Do you want to say anything, Michael? Yeah? Do you want to come up as well? Karen's going to say something first. Head up here.
She's about
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to be 1 minute. First of all, this 1 minute is to say thank you to everybody who went to Israel. Thank you, you're all the most incredible people, and you've really inspired me, because as a Jewish person living in here, as a British woman, I'm quite depressed, I have to say. Every day I feel worse and worse. So I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to all of you for giving me some sort of strength, because everyone I speak to who's Jewish now aren't keeping quiet about how they're feeling, and we're not feeling good at all. Anyway, I'm an artist, and since 2019 I've been making work about the Holocaust, about contemporary anti-Semitism, about the 7th of October, and I was invited to a conference last weekend where I could show my work, which was actually cancelled by a group that I've been on to for 17 years.
Shame.
So, yeah.
Absolute shame.
Yeah, and the work was about the 7th of October. I knew where they were coming from, and I resigned publicly. Anyway, so at this conference, everything was going very well, and there were people from a different heritage, and a Muslim woman got up and she talked, and she was talking about having moved away from her religion. So that was all going well. I was very curious about why she moved away, and at the end she just said, oh yes, well, except for the genocide in Gaza. I mean, this came up when we were at a women's conference about women being cancelled, etc., in the arts. So the artworks I make are with tiny hand stitching, and they take weeks and months and even years. So I was so disturbed by her comment that I actually went home. I was already exhausted from the conference, and I spent 2 hours stitching, and then the next morning I got up early and I printed that stitch onto fabric, and I'm doing this little gentle bit of activism. So all it is, if you want to take part, it's the simplest thing, and what it's about, it's very short, I'll just read it to you, you can take these away with you, is that it's called Truth Will Out. And Truth Will Out is a quiet form of activism where small labels are discreetly, these are the labels, they're tiny, they're just on cloth, and, and they're discreetly placed in various spots around the capital, inviting passers-by to pause and reflect. So we're living in a time when bias, propaganda and misinformation, both in mainstream media and on social platforms, often shape public opinion. A growing chorus repeats familiar slogans: Israel is a colonial state, Israel is an apartheid state, Israel is committing genocide. These claims are deeply contested, and while widely circulated, repetition does not
make them true, but people do think they're true. I mean, I actually went around the conference, I left them in the lift, in the loos, in the kitchen, and on chairs. People actually came and sat on them, which was quite amusing. And I left them on the tube station, I left them on at the bus stop, in the park, on benches. And I'm asking you to join me in doing this. So if you go on my website, you can see examples of where they were left. But you must be careful, even I was very careful. I make sure nobody is watching me, because what I would like you to do is to leave one of these tiny little labels somewhere, anywhere, it doesn't matter where. Like I just left it on the seat next to me on the tube. And I took a photograph. So that's what you have to do, is you take a photograph of where you've left it, and then just email it to me, and I will add it to my collection of labels and photographs. It's just a tiny little activist. It's not something I normally do. I'm usually very quiet and stay at home and mind my own business. And so, but I think this is really important. So if you want a little pack, please come to me. I can give you more than one. I can give you more labels. And thank you very much for listening.
KarenGarfin.com is really worth looking at. That is the right.
Yes.
Can you spell?
Her artwork is absolutely beautiful, and I've also done an interview with her on the Arts First podcast that I do, and I'd really suggest you listen to it, because it really explains what she's done about the whole idea of, in a way, naming people to memorialise them, people and their details, and her work really is quite exquisite, so I really recommend pick up these cards, because she's got a free postcard at least.
Yes, indeed.
And check out her work, it's brilliant, and do what she says.
I agree. Lovely people that came to my exhibition as well.
Spell your website. It's CAREN. CAREN.com.
Thank you very much for that. Mike, would you like to come and say?
It's only very brief. So
You might as well come up here.
Over here.
Oh, yeah, we'll have them. Yeah. If you want, I can give you more labels if you want to do more than one.
So, if you would mind doing that at the end, because we're running out of time.
Is Kirpa going to be calling in?
Thank you so much for all the material that you put online from the April trip. It was fascinating. I'm Michael. I'm a British non-Jew. I had my own individual trip to Israel in March. Lucky enough to have an Israeli Jewish friend. It's a woman I met a long time ago. We were sort of tenuously in touch, and then after October the 7th, I messaged her, and to cut a long story short, we were in touch regularly after that. And she said I had to visit her in an apartment in Tel Aviv, which eventually I did. I did it when the ceasefire happened, but then I happened to be going there just as the ceasefire ended, so I had the first rocket alerts and the missiles from Yemen and that kind of thing. But the most remarkable thing, and this fits in with the theme earlier about Israelis' surprising gratitude. I was only there for 5 days, but I had a very intense last 24 hours. And Saturday, I went to the Nova site, and then in the evening, went to Hostages Square. And my friend happened to know someone who organises the rallies in Hostages Square. And unexpectedly, I found myself with a backstage pass with her, standing next to recently released hostages and various other people who were speaking. My friend explained to me that a couple of the people I was literally almost shoulder to shoulder with backstage were, for example, a young couple, a guy who'd been released in February, and his girlfriend who had survived, like the woman who sung in the Eurovision, she'd survived literally under a pile of dead bodies in one of those shelters on the road near Nova. And the happy ending there is that they're engaged to be married.
Aww.
And she explained that one of the other people standing next to me was the mother of Guy Gilberto Dalal, who is one of the hostages who is still in Gaza, I think believed to be alive. And my friend said, oh, you know, she spoke in Hebrew to the mother of Guy Gilberto Dalal, and said, oh yeah, this is Michael. He's in London, and he does he's involved in counter protests and that kind of thing. And I was amazed that this woman who's going through presumably an unimaginable degree of anguish, she seemed to take an interest in the fact that there were people doing counter-protests in London. I got my phone out and showed her a video, just a random video. It happened to be a Stop the Hate protest in mid-March, because my visit was in March. And she looked at it and she showed what was visibly, she was interested. I couldn't believe it. And she said, Isaac, it's amazing that you've got people doing this in London. You've got Jewish and what, non-Jewish people as well? I said, yeah, non-Jewish people doing this in London. She said, that's brilliant. I was just blown away by the fact that in the midst of what she's going through, she was able to apparently derive some happiness from this video of an Our Fight and Stop the Hate activity. And as I mentioned to Mark, I just wish that it was the people who are at the forefront of Our Fight, like Mark, or like Niat, the people who do so much with Our Fight and with Stop the Hate, they should have been there hearing those words. Because if someone like that, it's meaningful for her, I think that really does emphasise the value of what you are doing. It was an extremely moving and surprising moment, and in a very intensely emotional 5-day trip, I think that was the most moving thing of all.
But as I said to you when you told me that story, it's very kind of you to say, oh, if only Mark or me, I could heard those words. But the thing is, you were there. You were there. You had gone to Israel, as had our group here. So in the current climate, you're a hero. The people. People. Yeah. So even getting into the country, people, we're getting raised eyebrows from the border people because why are you coming? People. So I'm glad you met her. I think it's fantastic, and the comments she made, you deserve them. Anyway, so any final words? I don't know. What do you want to say something about Kerper? So Kerper.
Kerper. What is Kerper?
One second. So yeah, I don't know if there's no way we can hear from you, Kerper. What we should have done is got you to record a message or something like that. But Wendy wants to say, do you want to say something nice about her, or?
I'll say something. I just wanted to mention Kerper, who's listening in and has to be silent, which actually is not what Kerper's good at. So I just wanted to say to Kerper, thank you so much for being there and helping to organise us and helping to make it a fantastic trip and being so constantly alert to the debate, the discussions that needed to go on, pushing us quite hard to think, and also helping us to have a really good time. She was always the one last down with the glasses of wine and beer. She's the last one to go to bed. I'm not sure she was the first one to get up though. Anyway, Kerper, it was wonderful to get to know you on that trip, and thank you very much.
What was amazing about Kerper as well is that you probably noticed that people kept saying to her, "Oh wow, you know more about Israel than I do." There were people. She's been everywhere in Israel, and that enthusiasm for Israel really rubbed off on the trip. She was constantly suggesting places that we should visit and things. So yeah, thank you very much, Kerper. So sadly, as the evening draws to a close, keep smiling there. Okay, any final words? Okay, too late. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all the support. I'm really,
thank you.
Really,
thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you, everybody. Really.
Are you doing a repetition next year?
We definitely are.
Yeah. Fantastic.
But I'll be a bit more selective. There'll be a vetting process. It's already started, though, just so that you know. Oh, yeah.
Again.
What? Go.
I heard first time when the hostage released, we said Jan was emotional. And the time the hostage was, the first actually hostage was released, you saw that from the actually social media. When you went in Israel and seen the Nova Festival place, I want to know what's coming in your mind. Because we all always seen the footage. I've seen many footage, different footage right on the screen about the cars damaged, the Israeli flag, actually the hostages, the people who died in that time. I want to know actually how you find the place, Noah Festival Memorial place.
So, because we're going to have to wrap up, so I'll say something if that's all right.
Yes.
So I think one of the things that, for me, that was really important about having that time, so being in Israel and then having the time to reflect on everything, is that I've been trying to think of a way to describe this, and the only way I can describe it is you drill down, everything gets more focused. So I'll explain what I mean. So we say, 1,200 people were killed. It was the worst massacre since the Holocaust of Jews. And we say that, and it kind of trips off the tongue. And it's obviously it's horrific. 1,200 people is horrific. But there's other things have happened where there's numbers, so it's kind of, it just becomes a number. But then you say, okay, as you rightly point out, 354 or whatever it was were killed at Nova. Right, so now you've got so it's not 1,200, it's 354 at Nova and 100 at this kibbutz, and Sderot police station that Jan was referring to is 56. And then you look at each of those things themselves is larger than anything else we've experienced. So you take something like Bataclan. Bataclan is a horrific, terrible thing, where terrorists went into a music hall and shot people. But that was 90 people. So it's not, so there's 1,200, and then down 354 at a music festival. There was another music festival where another 100 were killed. And so I think you're quite right to say that you get that sense when you go to Nova, and then you see the memorial, and then you see the cars piled up at the car graveyard. And then you think, okay, each of these, I tell you one of the things I think to finish on is really good is the Ziv Koren exhibition.
Yeah.
So one of the things we did was went to Ziv Koren's exhibition and the book that he's done. Okay, so you know what, I had planned to bring that and pass it around, so maybe we'll be feeling enough to be through it. And what he does in there is he really makes you slow down and look at each story. And there's a story about three guys who got up in the morning on October the 7th to go for their usual motorbike ride, and then, two of them managed to escape and one of them was shot. There's another story, a photo that you've probably seen, famous photo, where some elderly people were in a minibus. They tried to get into a bomb shelter. The bomb shelter was locked. All 13 of them were murdered and shot by Hamas. And so he brings it down. This 1,200 number, it doesn't tell you anything because you're not getting the sense of real people on a real day doing a real thing, defending this kibbutz, fighting in this police station. So I think going to Israel, it is really important to get that sense of exactly what this massacre, what this pogrom, it was multiple pogroms. That's the thing, I think, for me.
It's very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. So they've done an amazing job of, I think Wendy referred to the memorials, and each thing they memorialise, each one is different and somehow done in a different way. Anyway, we'll wrap up there. Thank you very much for... No, you can't put your hands up and say, right, one more thing.
I want to say that
I wish to take an Indian delegation, group of people also to experience the same thing. Because what's happened at Palgam, the same kind of feeling. And I think when they go and see the Noah site and other parts, that's very important.
Yeah.
And we'll
probably
be working
So my final thing then is thank you very much. So our fight is going to properly organise another trip. We're going to try and organise other sessions like this. We desperately need, this is me now talking, because this video is going to be, I'm going to share it, so this is me now talking, not just to you guys, but to whoever may be watching. We desperately need help. We need help in editing videos. We need help with our social media. We need help with the website. We need help with meetings like this. We need help with the finances. So we really do. I'm going to be pushing more in WhatsApp and everything, asking people to help us. But if you guys have got any ideas, video, have got any ideas or suggestions, please. But other than that, thank you so much for joining me in Israel. And thank you for joining me here.